Epidemiology. So how do we define it? What is it? The British Medical Journal, nowadays known as the BMJ, has this online resource called Epidemiology for the Uninitiated. It's a great resource available here, and it's like a book, but it's printed online. In there, they say that epidemiology is the study of how often disease occurs in different groups of people and why. Epidemiological information is used to plan and evaluate strategies to prevent illness and as a guide to the management of patients in whom disease has already developed. So there's a lot going on in this definition, and a few key words here obviously is it's a study how often disease occurs in different groups and why. The information is used to plan and evaluate strategies to prevent illness, and also as a guide of management of patients in whom disease has already developed. In Concepts of Epidemiology by Bhopal, they state that epidemiology really means study upon populations. Epi upon, demos people, ology study. A focus primarily on disease and how disease detracts from health, with a broad definition of disease to include accidents, being unwell, and so on. The science and practice that describes and explains disease patterns in population, it uses this knowledge to prevent and control disease and improve health. The strategy of epidemiology is to seek differences and similarities in the disease patterns of different populations to gain knowledge. Okay, and then finally, in the book Epidemiology by Design by Weisreich, they say epidemiology is largely concerned with the study of the presence and occurrence of disease and ways to prevent disease and maintain health. So in these three definitions, we can see that there is stuff going on with populations, occurrence of disease, why, strategies to prevent and guide management of them. And there is a lot of obsession of health, which is great, but it's modeling disease. So health is a little bit harder to grasp and is a little bit more abstract. So we're mainly focusing on the occurrence of disease rather than the occurrence of health. And that's sort of a main theme throughout epidemiology. Okay, so from these three, I think there's some sort of agreement on what epidemiology is. Now, this list could be made long, but I just wanted to show a few people that are been key figures or key individuals in the development of epidemiology as we see it today. Hippocrates, obviously, he examined the relationship between the occurrence of disease and environmental influences a long time ago. But the father of modern epidemiology is John Snow, who traced the roots of cholera outbreak in London to water supply. Janet Leigh Claypone, she pioneered the use of cohort studies and case control studies, which we'll talk a lot more about later. Bradford Hill was an epidemiologist and a statistician who pioneered the randomized clinical trial. There's this Bradford Hill criteria for determining a causal association, which we will also touch upon later. And then I'd like to mention Judea Pearl, who's a computer scientist and philosopher, and is credited for developing a theory of causal and counterfactual inference based on structure models. And we're going to touch upon that as well. And it's a growing area in epidemiology in using causal structure models in order to be able to decide when an association can be considered causal and how we go from associations to causality.